Tic-tac-toe game, if you try to basically flip it, it wouldn't rotate correctly, I would imagine, and it would look kind of funny. And I just want to prove that to you guys. I made a very simple, here's a storyboard I have, and I literally just threw a view in there with a label. So if I run this, basically what auto layout will do for you is make all of your designs rotate well and fit all sorts of screen devices. So right now this has absolutely no constraints on it, and if I rotate it, it actually looks kind of good, right? Like it looks like I kind of meant to do that on purpose, but if I rotate it this way, it completely bleeds off the screen. This is where auto layout's going to do wonders for you. So if I wanted to center this, I would just start adding what's known as auto layout constraints. I'm not going to do that right now. I just wanted to show you kind of the box that we have available to us. Ever since the iPhone X came out, they came out with this new thing called the safe area. And the safe area does not include this or this. And so if you read their guidelines, basically they do not want anyone to design anything that's going to bring more attraction to the notch. They're all about do not bring more attention to the notch. I don't know why, but like if you read it, it's actually quite funny. But this, yeah.
Even though it says you're showing us clicks, do you guys see the cursor in the videos as well? Or?
So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you do. Okay,
Yeah.
I just, when you said this and this, I wanted to make sure they were seeing.
Okay, I wasn't actually clicking, but yeah, I can click next time. So right here is where I'm talking about right now is the top bar. That actually houses like the battery, the percentage, and everything. And then this down here has this new dragon. So like if you have an iPhone, you probably don't have that because that's an iPhone X attribute. But this is where you drag up and actually get your home. Or I guess that's how you get the app to go away. I don't have an iPhone X, so I actually don't know the gestures that well. But the safe area will apply to all devices, the iPad and everything. So really what you just need to know is those are your boundaries of what you want to kind of attach things to. And so, to start out with, I have this view, and I want to pin it basically to the center of the screen. There are multiple ways to do this, but what I kind of like to do is I'll come down to this little guy, click this little guy that looks like a Star Wars, like TIE Fighter, and you can basically start pinning things. All auto layout is you pin one item to a second item. So I actually don't have the option to pin anything, so I will look for something else. Alright, well, I'll be honest, I don't know how to use that one that well. But it looks like I added a constraint already. Need constraint for exposition. Did I add a stack view on accident? I did. That's cool. I'm just going to delete this. Have you guys looked too much into like what's down here? There's all sorts of little cool little gadgets, the activity indicator and stuff like that. If you get some time, I would just kind of like scroll through and look what is available to you for building stuff. Right now I'm just going to drag a basic view, which is honestly just a square, and put it on the screen, and I will control click from this guy to its parent, and you have some options here, and I'll do center horizontally, so it'll be straight in the center, and it's going to start complaining immediately. This guy will try to help you out. It's basically telling you need a Y constraint. So for auto layout to work, you need to let the storyboard know the X position and Y position, and in other circumstances you're going to want to also give it a width and a height so that it knows exactly how to lay itself out. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, and it'll actually fix this for me, and it'll add a missing constraint. I don't want to do that because I personally like to be in full control of the constraints I'm adding. So I'm going to control drag down here again, and I have the option to center vertically in safe area. That'll put it smack dab in the center, but I don't really want to do that. It's also probably now going to complain that I need a width, and a height. So
just for extra information, when you're giving it an X and Y position, that's orienting the top left corner of the view. Isn't that correct? It's not orientating like the center position on that view. It's not orientating.
So it's kind of like the padding.
Yeah, or
As in, like, CSS.
yeah, but yeah, like, depends on which context you're thinking of that. But, so when you're defining where it is, it's orienting off the top left. So other systems will orient from the bottom, and Apple orients from the top.
Yeah, if you start counting like they're called points. Points are like, I think, 3 pixels. I can't exactly know the actual math because points actually for the iPad Air 2, that's because it's a Retina screen. It has more pixels than the iPad Air 1. So pixels don't actually mean anything in like iOS land because of the Retina display. So that's why they started creating these things called points. And I don't know the exact version. You could probably Google it, but point system, this top left here is 0, 0. I actually don't use that too much because auto layout does so much for you. So this view right here, if you click this ruler, and let me shrink this back down, right now I have align center X and align center Y. So that'll be smack dab in the middle. And if I wanted to go ahead and give it a height and constraint, I could do that. So right now I'm control dragging to itself and give it a fixed width. Whoops. And then give it a fixed height, and now it's got a width of 240, height of 128. I can change this to 50 and 50 if I wanted to and make it a perfect square. And I will go ahead and change the background color on it so we can see it better. I'll go ahead and do pink. Run the application, and you see that's perfectly in the center. I want to, at the end of this, build this login screen. So this is the app that I work on at Monsanto. It's an app called Scout, and I just wanted to show like the safe area here. I literally just pinned this to the safe area, but obviously I don't know if you guys like the way that looks, but there's a ways around it. You can basically pin it to the safe area, and then I think from here to here is 20 points, so all I'd have to do is add 20. Same to this one down here, and that way it would take up the full screen. So that's what I want to kind of go towards is a text field, 2 text fields, maybe like your app icon, and then a button to sign in. Our app actually doesn't rotate. We did that for a very specific reason. But you can disable rotation essentially if you. But auto layout will still really help you in terms of laying your stuff out. It's not fully because you have this rotation thing. It's also because if you build to like an iPad or something like that, it's going to lay everything out perfectly for you. So here it is, dead in the center. If I wanted to increase it, make it go up, what I would personally do is right now it's align center. The center Y of this pink is align center Y of this parent view, this guy right here. What I would do is you can double click these guys, and this view, let me rename it, pink. So whenever I'm working with a specific view, oop, that's not the right one. This is like the parent view, sorry. And this is the pink view. Whenever I'm working with constraints, I like to tap on this first. That'll highlight this area over here to change. As you notice, everything I click changes accordingly. So now that I have this pink view highlighted, I come over here and you can see all the constraints I have added to it. Right now I have 4. And if I wanted to make it go up, you can double click it, and then now you're in this basically super edit mode. You have the ability to change its second item. If I wanted to change it to, there's two things going on here. There's the parent view, and there's which is the super view in this case. But there's also the safe area, which is basically the boundaries. Like, so you can pin it to the view that exists here, or you can pin it to the boundary. Which, let me just show you this real quick. If you click this guy down here, this is the debug view hierarchy. What it's gonna do is you can turn it and actually start seeing the layers here. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is the super view. This UI window essentially is the container of the entire app. If I removed the window and the view controller, that's exactly what you see. You would see a black screen, and that's known as the UI window. You start tapping on these guys, you'll see the hierarchy. So this is the UI window. If I tap on that, you'd now see that kind of who belongs to who. So this pink UI view belongs to the auto layout font.view controller. This is really helpful in cases of this guy. So if I do that on this one, you can really start to see how this login screen that we're going to build will come together. So again, we have in this instance, I actually have two view controllers underneath because we have let me just, I'll get to that later. But you can kind of just start clicking around, and you can see that this is actually a custom text field that we created, and it belongs to the login view, which belongs to the login view controller. This is a very, very simple screen. This hierarchy really starts to get more useful when you get more complex screens. You can also have this. You also have this over here, so you can start tapping over here, and you can see like what actually these things that you created in code are named, and what they are over here. A lot of times when people start using auto layout, they forget to put height and width on their views, and they're like, where is it? One thing you can do is hit this view debug hierarchy thing. So if you don't give it a view, a width or a height, it's going to assume that you wanted it to be 0. So it literally won't even be a speck on the screen. It'll be nothing. And so what I'll do is I'll come into this hierarchy and see if my view is even on here. So if it was on here, I would know that I made a mistake, that I didn't give it a height or a width. Or maybe it's, you know, a super long line, and I wanted to know why I didn't give it a height. You can come in here and check out the constraints that you have on it. So this one will actually start showing you, as you start tapping on them, the constraints that you have. Yeah, so another thing, for as far as constraints go, there's really 4 main ones that you'll use. There's top, bottom, leading, and trailing. And they don't call it, there is actually left and right, but leading and trailing is the one you're going to use more. As you can see, this one has trailing constraints. That is due to the language, like reading direction. So some countries reading right to left versus left to right. So the leading and trailing are really the ones that you use the most. I actually have never used left or right. I can't.
Which one is which?
So the leading is the one on the left.
Okay.
I think LL in my mind, and then trailing is the one on the right.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, trailing is the one that follows. And so if you change it, the native language to Arabic, everything would flip. Because that's read, if I remember correctly, Arabic is. Yep. Arabic is the other way.
Interesting.
Okay. So back to moving this pink view upwards. So you have these options again. So this one is literally a vertical constraint. So the storyboard's smart enough to know that you can't do leading and trailing because it's a vertical constraint. So it's gonna filter out those options, and it's gonna give you top, bottom, and some other options. What I'm gonna do is add a constant to this, which means you're adding some height to it. So if you just go into the storyboard and start playing around and you add 200 to it, you'll see that it pushes it down. That's because what she was talking about earlier, 0, 0 is at the top left. So if I add numbers to it, 200, it's going to go down. If I take away numbers from it, it's going to go up. And that's kind of what we want to do, really, is if this were the little owl, that's kind of what I'm going for right now. So I guess I'll keep that for now and start throwing some of these other things on here. So there's a label right here. Throw that on the screen. And I'm actually kind of curious what will happen if I just run it and throw it on auto layout. I'm going to start using an iPad. Did I miss it? All right, fine. Do that one. As that's running, I wanted to show you guys some other cool things about the text fields. If you notice, when I'm typing my username, the username in there disappears. That's just placeholder text. You can go in and edit that on this fourth little attribute here. This is where you can start updating the text. So if you actually wanted to give it text, you'll see it here in the storyboard. That is just you won't be able to edit that text. This is the actual text. This is the placeholder text. That's what we have right now as username. It's grayed out. You can hardly see it. That's where placeholder text goes. Another cool thing is you can change the keyboard that actually comes up for text fields. So if you had like a text field that only would enter in numbers, so like you're taking in a zip code, you could only bring up the number keyboard. You would do that, you know, like right here in number pad. You have all these other options for you. And this text field in particular is a password text field. You can have a secure text entry so that when you start typing and people are around you, you literally have a split second to see that I typed it. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it shows it until you move on.
Oh, okay. That's not cool. You can see my first letter of my password. But anyways,
paying close attention.
Yeah, exactly. If you start typing, you'll see that it's getting replaced with dots. That's something down here. But if you just start kind of playing with all these features on the right side, you'll kind of see some really cool stuff. Alignment of the text. All right. So back here, you notice I just threw that label on. I don't know why. You know, you might ask yourself, why is it not in the center? If I flip it, it's below. First it was above. Flip it, now it's below. We can easily start pinning that view or that label. So it's there's two things. If you control drag to the parent and you go up, it's going to assume that you want to do some, maybe not. Leading space to safe area. Top space to safe area. Yeah, so if you go this way, it's going to assume that you are reaching for something on the left-hand side. So it's only going to give you the options of leading space and so on. Whereas if I go up, it's going to say, oh, did you mean to do top space and stuff like that. And another thing, there's also these things called margins. So the safe area would be all the way fully to the left. iOS has these built-in margins, and the way you get them is holding down the Option key. The Option key is something you can do all over the place. So if I go to Editor, Product, there is this Option key, and it actually will, you see that test is not available here. I hit it, you get these other options. That's really what the Option key does for you. It kind of unlocks these other options for you. The only reason why I bring that up is the margins are really nice. The margin on an iPad is going to be much larger than the iPad on an iPhone 5S. So you don't have to start saying if iPad, you know, pin this thing 10 points versus, you know, 2 points sort of thing. So the margins are really nice to use. So, okay. I want to pin this in the center. Do you guys remember what we need to do that? What's that? Oh no, just like talking in general. What constraints would I need to make this center. Yeah, so center this horizontally, and I'll just do the safe area for now. I'll get this error here, and you can actually just go ahead and add missing constraints. And now I'm curious what it added, so I'll go over to what it added. Whoops, wrong guy, label. So this is the one we added, and this is the one it added. It added top space 62, which is interesting. I don't like that, so what I'm going to do is double click it, and I do like the label.top. I just... Oh, to the pink? That's actually pretty awesome. That's what I wanted. Because what's nice about this is if you get, you know, one thing here, you can actually just start building downwards. So with auto layout, let me just go to this draw pad. Let's say this is the owl. I can start adding a constraint of, let's say I want to put 10 points in between the owl and the title of Scout. Oh my god, this is really hard. Okay, so 10, let's say I just want to do 10 points. What's nice is this owl is basically acting kind of like as like your guideline, and so I could add another 10 points downwards to do the rest of this stuff. Here's a text field, and then, you know, another 5 points for another text field. That's what I'm going to do right now. So right now it's 62. Let's just do 10 or 20. And you'll notice with the label that we no longer have any auto layout issues, and that is because a label is smart enough to know when it has a ton of text in it. So over here you'll see how many lines you want this label to be. So if I put in a bunch of text, so lorem ipsum is just something online that you can use to generate a bunch of text. So this is a bunch of text, and I am going to copy and paste that into this label. Hit enter, and you'll see that it updated it over here. If I run this, I'm really curious what this will look like. Do you guys have any guesses what it's going to look like?
Oh my god.
Oh, actually, no.
I was just gonna keep going.
It literally just goes in an infinite line for forever. So what we want to do is right now we have it pinned. Right now we have it pinned center Y, center X, but we never gave it constraints of the boundaries of what it can go to.
It's almost like when you're leaning on your computer and it's just
Yeah.
all those letters.
Mm-hmm. So what we could do here is on this label, go to the safe area again, and maybe not. I'll go to the parent view, leading space to safe area. That's what I wanted. I don't know why it didn't give me that option before. And then trailing space to safe area. And wow, those numbers must be astronomically large. 1,900, yeah, that's not what we want. So what I want to do is I want to push it inwards about 10 points. So I'll, this is a little misleading because you don't know what the first item is compared to the second item. The first item here would be the label itself, and so that's the, it gave me trailing. I didn't want trailing. So you can actually modify the first item here and start updating what you wanted it to be. I wanted it to be leading, and the safe area trailing, I didn't want that either. I wanted it to be leading, and I wanted to be inwards of 10. So that does look like that's what it's doing. What I do sometimes is I'll just give it a really big number and see which way it goes. So we'll stick with 20. And I just want to do it to the other side as well. Another thing is you can control click. Whoa. Do I? It may have added some on.
I think you did leading and trailing, and then you edited trailing.
Okay, you're right. So let me edit this one to be trailing. Just flip these again. So now I have a trailing constraint of 1,923. I just wanted it to be 20. And so now it's being pushed in this way on both sides. And if I run it, I actually don't even need to run it. That's exactly what it looks like. That's when you get the ... And you can change the way that this looks just by scrolling down on this third tab, which is called the Attributes Inspector. So you can change all the attributes on it. Right now it's on Truncate Tail, so it's giving it a tail of ... You can also do word wrap, but you'll notice that it really didn't do anything because the number of lines right here is defined as 1. If you want to start increasing the number of lines, you can increase it by 1. Or if you just give it 0, it'll be infinite. And so there's also character wrap. So the character wrap will really start on each new alphanumeric character. It'll start, clipping it. And there's also clip itself, which makes it kind of nicer to look at. It's kind of just fun to just run around and look through all these. You can center the text. I actually don't know what this one is compared to this one. I was wondering that today. Oh, it's lining up everything on the left. Well, what's the difference of this one and this one then? I don't know. I'm honestly not sure.
I think it lines up.
Sometimes when you hover and literally you just move your mouse a little bit and then hover over something, sometimes it gives you a little help, icon, but I haven't actually got that to work in Xcode 9. I don't know.
Maybe they removed it.
Yeah. But you used to be able to hover over these and it would give you a little tidbit more information on what they actually do. But anyways, that's kind of text being in a label and auto layout. So if I ran this, it would look exactly like that as opposed to just sprinting off the screen. That comes in handy when you start building these table views that have a ton of text. And you know how your messaging app, as you start texting, that's all dynamic, right? So you would want your bubble to grow a particular size according to fitting in that text. Other things like making the text larger, it'll handle that as well. So I just want this to say Scout. Whoops. Or app that we're creating. And well, I'll keep going with these text fields. Throw them on the screen. And I will go ahead and should I show you the cheat? I guess I will. This little guy down here.
Is that the one with the 4 squares?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of off the screen there.
This is the triangle one. Oh, look. It gave me, yeah.
Resolve auto layout issues.
Okay, so it's a triangle.
Yeah, that's the triangle. If honestly, if you're just on your own computer, you can just tap and just see the options that they give you.
So what that icon is literally the, if you look on the left on those menus, the triangle, which is the 4th item, is your errors. So it's saying errors, and then the lines to the side is just saying constraints. It's saying constraint errors. And then the box with the lines to the side that are called the TIE Fighter, that's just your view with constraints. Okay. So instead of always I don't know what to call that, I don't know what that symbol means, it took me forever to figure out.
I still don't know the names. I just say that TIE Fighter thing.
But just throwing that out there.
Yeah. So, man, what else was I going to say? Oh. Have you guys used Git yet?
Yes.
Okay. Git is really... Yeah. So these storyboards, the way they look is it's an XML file. So if you ever do Android programming, that's XML. And if you ever do have any web development, that's HTML. It's literally just some really nice tags that the operating system will read and then render your screen for you. What actually looks underneath the cover is if you right-click on a storyboard, you can open as source code, and this is what it looks like. So in Git, this is what it's actually getting saved as. So if you accidentally delete a constraint or something, Git is great in seeing that you deleted something. This is a tool called Source Tree, and it'll show you kind of what was deleted. Red is deleted, what green was added. That's fantastic for something like this in case you basically accidentally, let's say I deleted this constraint. That's the same thing. So if I go over here and hit delete, and all of a sudden I have, well, now I have no issues. That's kind of scary, but on the screen you can also hit Command Z and undo what you kind of did, but it's really kind of hard to tell what the previous state was. Another thing you can do is when you start using Git, this is your Git tool, and you can see basically your past revisions. So if I had changed something, you could see that this is my local revision over here, and this is the current one that I'm kind of doing, and you can see the differences that I've made. That's one way you can kind of tell that maybe you deleted something on accident or something like that. So Command Z to undo and stuff like that, and then looking at these comparisons is really going to help in terms of knowing what you did. But so this other thing, oh, okay. So I had to click on this view controller to get this to come up. I was clicked over here, which means nothing's highlighted. So when I click on this, there's no options here. So I'll come back over here, click on this view controller, and my teammate did this for the longest time. He literally would drag and drop stuff on here. I'll just drag a bunch of stuff on here and just see how this works.
Do a stack view.
Do a stack view?
Yeah, we can show them stack views.
I kind of just want to show them a bunch of stuff on the screen. So as you can see, as I start dragging and dropping stuff, you get this like blue line stuff. That's actually it saying, do you really, it's helping you align stuff, but it's also saying, if you drop this here and you come down here and say, add the missing constraints, that's kind of basically saying, okay, I wanted you to pin the top of this one to the top of that one, align the leading with the line of leading. That's honestly what it's doing underneath the covers. So if I start dragging stuff around, line it to the center like this with the blue line, and I click this button, add missing constraints, it adds all the constraints that I just had those dashed lines. Now they're solid. So if I run the app, it has those constraints. That's what my teammate did for the longest time, and I had to get him to stop doing that, because when you get on more complex screens, you really want to have the skills of, honestly, you're just pinning stuff to the screen. But as you can see, this resembles kind of what ooh, what's that guy up there? I think that's the activity view indicator. So that's the reason why I don't really. Oh wow.
Oh no, that's a text field. You've got a cursor button.
Oh, you're right. So where's my text field? Oh, that's good. It didn't give. Okay. This is kind of the reason why I don't do this. I like putting my own constraints on it, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this stuff and continue on. That's it. This is down here for your convenience. Add the missing constraints, reset to suggested constraints, but honestly, you're going to want to look at what it does, because it's I see it as like rolling the dice, honestly. You can't get away with it, but when you get to more advanced screens, you're going to want to know how to pin stuff. So this guy's still missing constraints. I'm going to do horizontal and give it some space to the scout guy, which is vertical spacing, and vertical spacing to this one, and center horizontally, and there you go. That's lost the what?
Lost your width on the second one.
Yeah. Well, actually, I lost the width on the first one too. If you notice this yellow arrow up here, it's basically saying that this screen hasn't completely rendered the layouts that you added. So what you want to do is click it. This says expected actual. What it's basically saying is we haven't updated the frames. Basically, the storyboard hasn't refreshed to show you what it's going to look like. So if you just hit fix, now you see that I lost kind of the width on both of these.
The little refresh icon down by the typewriter will do the same thing.
Oh, where?
It's grayed out right now.
Okay.
But if you go to
I'll hit Command Z and then yeah, do that again. You're right. Yeah, I've never used that before. There's like There's multiple ways to do every single thing on the screen for a lot of it. Another thing that you can do, this is your hierarchy over here. This is how I've added everything on the screen. So technically, let me go ahead and, well, I kind of want to just stack them on each other for fun. Let me just do that with this stuff. This will go on top of that one. This will go on top of that one. And the progress view will go on top of that one. As you can see, this is the bottom of the stack. So as you start hitting down, you're going to the top of the stack. And so if I run this, I hope they're all like on top of each other. If they're not, that's fine. They kind of are. So if I run the view debug hierarchy and turn it sideways, you'll actually see that's actually how it laid itself out. This is on top, this is on bottom, and you can really get into the nitty-gritty by making it, larger. And again, here's your hierarchy over here. So it really helps you kind of figure out the layers. But yeah, this is in order on purpose. If I started moving these over here, it moves it over here. So if the progress view is on top first. If I move it to the bottom, it's now on the bottom. You probably can't tell because this guy's here. But you can see how it moved to the bottom, move it on top, move it on bottom. So I use these in conjunction. So the storyboard and then the left side are really both different, unique tools. You can also create constraints from one item to another one by selecting them over here. A lot of times, if your view gets really small or like complex, dragging from here to here isn't easy. Like right now, it's easy, but sometimes
start adding a progress bar instead, or the activity.
Yeah, exactly. If I was trying to drag this one to that's still kind of easy, but it does get it does get hard. You can do the same thing over here, and this one's actually got a little bit more. It doesn't have the direction like this one, where if you go if you go that way, it's like leading space to safe area. That you don't have that direction over here on this menu. So if oh my gosh, go here to here, it actually will give you everything that you can possibly do, as opposed to filtering out, the direction that you drag it to. So you can do either one that you kind of prefer. If you just start playing with it, you'll kind of maybe do a mix of the two. Okay, so this guy doesn't have a width. I can just give it a width and a width. And this guy, 25, I want it to be more like 60. That's still too small. 200. And you can also hit edit. It gives you a mini option of double clicking it. I always double click normally. So now I pretty much have this screen. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you in terms of auto layout. So I don't know, do you guys want to hook this up, or do you guys want to just try to do the auto layout portion of it on your own? By hooking it up, I mean this text field. I could show you how to actually get the delegate method, or basically when I start typing, there's a bunch of cool methods that you get in terms of when the user started to type, so that you could do some sort of validation. Maybe your password has your requirements for a password are like 8 characters, so as soon as you go over 8 characters, you could maybe pop up a little symbol that says your password, password must be 8 characters or something like that. Something while you're dynamically typing to validate. You want to do? Okay.
Before we move on to that,
yeah,
a tiny thing that you're probably rarely going to mess with. But could you go over constraint conflicts and priority?
Sure.
I think if you have issues, it might be in constraint conflicts.
So yeah, it's funny you say that. I do have some right here. So right here, this is saying auto layout guide, ambiguous layouts. There's.
You know how if you're missing an IB outlet, this is not very helpful in telling you how to fix it. The same thing applies to constraints. So being familiar with constraints and how they work is going to help you more. Just getting practice with it and getting to know it very well is going to help you a whole lot more than these error messages.
The error messages, they did just for iOS, no, I'm sorry, Xcode 9, Xcode 9, one of their engineers revamped the error messages so that they're more helpful. And she also did, at WWDC, a video of basically how to debug this console down here. Because she added more helpful hints and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a really good video on it that I honestly forgot most of the things about.
2008 or 2017?
17, yeah. It's a good video to watch in terms of like very helpful hints.
Find it and post it on the channel.
Cool, yeah. There's a bunch of like tips and tricks that she shows on how to help with that sort of thing.
I did not know that.
There are certain things you can do. So let me show you. This guy has this constraint right here. You can add an identifier to it. So this is like super cool constraint. And if this ever was an issue, you would see super cool constraint down here is broken because whatever. If you don't have that, you get. Let me just break one of these. Pink view. Delete. So now I have an error. Let me run this. Your app will not crash due to layout constraint issues, but you will get this nasty message down here. Oh. Or not. Why not?
So, do a duplicate
Okay.
constraint. That'll
Yeah,
be
sure.
Guaranteed conflict.
Okay. Top space. Just sit here. So, I've added 2 constraints now to this one. This constraint is trying to push it down a ton, and the constraint that I have from the center Y is trying to push it up. So let's see if this will give us an error. There's a way to close one window because I don't want both of these open. Do you know how to close this window over here?
Which one you're closing?
Where do the scout one. Oh, Command W. That's right. Oh wow, I actually crashed.
Yeah, constraint can crash.
Yep. So it's saying that's interesting. This is like a new error that I've seen. See auto layout guide, ambiguous layouts for help debugging. They did like the woman I was talking about who did the WWDC video. She added an entire new section of developer.apple.com. And actually, let me just Google this. That's a lot of what you do as part of this job is just Googling stuff. So I will literally just copy this and paste it and see what comes up. I'm pretty sure she wrote a guide on how to fix these things.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It has ambiguous layout. Stuff like that. So this should be pretty helpful.
I have a bunch of that stuff saved on my computer.
Okay. Cool. But you can see that it's saying ambiguous layout for something. It doesn't actually tell you which items are in conflict or anything like that.
I mean, it does try to tell you, but like gives you the hex code for the item and
Right here, this one.
Not helpful.
Yeah, this is the actual piece of memory I believe that it actually sits in. So if you knew how to do the view, this guy, I guess I'll just show this. This is the memory graph of your application. That's not what I wanted. Oh, here we go. You can see all the memory that's been allocated for your application. I guess that's how they want you to do this. I don't know why they give you the memory address, but that's kind of how you could. These are all memory addresses. Maybe you could find it. I have no idea, but she kind of talks about it in the video is to give it an identifier. So if I gave this constraint an identifier of this constraint should break or something, and then give this guy.
Are you sure it was 2017?
I'm pretty sure.
You remember what she called it?
There's two. There's one from 2017. I swear there was one from 2016 as well.
Yeah. There's I found a couple of videos. I'm not from all of them because but I'm having trouble finding ones where a woman presented.
Okay. If I can find it, I'll post it. So I'll run this again. Sorry. See if we get anything better. So again, it'll give you unable to satisfy constraints, and it'll tell you at least one of these constraints is probably something you don't want. And because I named this pink box, again, you can go up to this little guy, it's the identifier card, and add an identifier. These identifiers are actually used for have you ever done web development where you add IDs to stuff? Mm-hmm. That's essentially what you're doing. Is you're adding.
An ID class.
Yeah, it's an ID, and it's helpful for debugging. So right now it's this pink box, which is nice. It's like, okay, that's what I have, and then let's see if there it is. This constraint should break. If you start adding identifiers to all your UI elements, debugging this hierarchy is going to be way easier. That's one of the tips and tricks that she shows. And then there's some other stuff. But we'll proceed with hooking up this text field real quick. Or 7 o'clock. Do you guys want to just play with auto layout yourselves and try to make this, or do you really want to see the text field stuff? We could like. What do you guys want to do?
Whatever.
I feel like playing with auto layout yourself might be. Yeah, I think so. You can always Google how to do stuff with text fields and stuff. There's always code that you can find, but auto layout is not something that you can honestly just Google and like get immediate help with. So playing with it and getting the experience with it is honestly the best way to learn this stuff.
You can't copy and paste constraints.
No, you can't. And then you can't just copy this error and be like, can somebody figure this out for me? And like no one on Stack Overflow is gonna answer you. Like
they're all gonna just dump you into the.
Yeah, because Stack Overflow has become like crazier like these days with people like just like bashing you.
Oh yeah.
I'll ask a question and someone will be like, do some research. I'm like, all right, man.
Why do you think I'm here?
Okay, I will end the video there and we'll just play with some constraints ourselves.
Awesome. So I think I found that video you were talking about.